Thanks so much for joining tonight, everyone, and setting time aside to be here. We decided to offer an evening virtual session to make this information more accessible to organizations that might be all volunteer, might have folks that work another job during the day, or just evenings work better. My name is Carolyn Desrosiers, and I am a Community Engagement Manager for the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region. I'm going to do a visual description for those that might be visually impaired. I am a white, cisgender female in my mid-30s. I have short curly brown hair, and I am wearing kind of a cream patterned top. And I'll invite Tammy to introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and evening to join us tonight. I'm Tammy Geenen, Vice President of Community Engagement with the Community Foundation. And I am a white woman who is wearing a white top and glasses, and I'm feeling a little under the weather tonight. And I know Carolyn is the same, so bear with us with our throats and coughs.
Yes, I have strep throat, but I can't get you sick virtually, so that's great. Thanks, Tammy. And we're going to invite all of you to introduce yourselves in the chat. We won't have time to go around and do introductions, but if you wouldn't mind sharing your name and the organization that you're representing tonight, we would love that. So we'll give folks a moment to do that. Also, if you would like to share pronouns, you can do that as well.
I'm Hugh Kress, Bethany Homes. We live independent living here. And I also am the head of our nature trail. So white guy, 75 years old, kind of white haired.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Hugh. And I'm actually going to have everybody, we're going to use the chat for our introductions, but I appreciate Hugh, you speaking your voice into the room and that you're here tonight. But just for time, we want to make sure we have as much time as possible for your questions. Great variety of local organizations that are joining us tonight, which is wonderful to see. All right, well, we're going to do a little bit of roadmap. Just to be aware, you can use the chat box for questions later on in our, and you can put questions in there as we go. We won't pause, but if you think of it in the moment and you want to put in the chat, you can go ahead and do that. And then when we get to Q&A about, we're hoping to hit Q&A around 7:10. You can also use the raise hand function and speak your questions out loud. So whatever works best for you, you can put them in the chat or use the raise hand function when we move into that portion of the evening. All right. Our agenda tonight is we're going to share a little bit about who we are. Many of you are familiar with the Community Foundation, but some of you aren't. And this is a great opportunity for us to share with you some updated mission, vision, values that we've been working on and that we're really excited about and that relate to the Community Vision Fund grants that we are going to spend the majority of our time talking about. We're going to talk about what's changing with our unrestricted grant making program, formerly known as the Bright Idea Fund, now going to be known as the Community Vision Fund. And we're going to go over what's different, what's the same, and very specifically, what will be different for you if you're a nonprofit grant seeker that's interested in applying to the fund. And then we're going to talk about some next steps and then have time for questions. The mission of the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region is to strengthen our community for current and future generations by helping people make a difference in the lives of all. And we made an update to this mission not too long ago. We used to say the lives of others, and now we want to say the lives of all. There's a role for everyone to play in the Community Foundation and to benefit everyone in our Fox Valley region. What do we do? We are nationally accredited community foundation, one of 26 in the state, and our business function is that we accept and professionally manage financial gifts for the long term, mostly for the long term, in flexible, easy, and efficient ways. We partner with people to help them determine what their giving wishes are and fulfill their charitable dreams and give back. We award grants that achieve results from these funds. They sustain our community for all, and many of them are designed, our grants kind of go on forever in perpetuity. Last year, we granted $38.5 million. That was a record for us. We're really proud of that. And that's really a reflection of the generosity and of the caring and commitment of the community. And obviously you're all here tonight to learn more specifically about grants. So making grants is a big piece of what we do. Another piece of what we do that folks might not know as much about is that we act as a convener and a connector. We use our knowledge of the community to connect leaders to one another, connect donors to causes that they're interested about, connect nonprofits to grants they might be eligible for. So we get to serve in this really amazing space of connecting and convening. We are inclusive partners. We encourage giving from all people, and we engage partners from all throughout the Fox Valley region to discover difference-making change. We are educators in that we listen, we learn, and we share knowledge back out to the community to raise awareness of community issues and opportunities to make a difference. And we are difference makers. We seek to foster personally meaningful connections between donors and nonprofit organizations that result in a stronger future for our generations to come. And we bring people together. We're community problem solvers. We come together to think about the community's vision for well-being, ways to help solve problems, ways that everybody can be thriving in the community, and looking for those opportunities for partnership and collaboration. One important thing to know about us is our service region. We define the Fox Valley region as 4.5 counties. So all of Outagamie County, Calumet County, Shawano, and Wapaka counties, and then the Neenah-Menasha area of Winnebago County. We share Neenah-Menasha sort of with our community foundation neighbor to the south, the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation. And to the north of us is the Green Bay Area Community Foundation. So if you do work outside of our 4.5 county region, know that there are other neighboring community foundations. We also have affiliate partners in each of these counties that actually are like a little mini foundation under our umbrella. People who are super passionate about their very local community. So we have the Brilliant Area Family of Funds, the Chilton Area Community Foundation, the Clintonville Area Foundation, Shawano Community Foundation, and Wapaka Community Foundation. In each of those communities, we work with a volunteer advisory board of folks who live in that community and provide pretty incredible leadership on making a difference in the community. So something to note if you're doing work in our broader region as well. Turn it over to Tammy.
All right, thanks, Carolyn. The foundation's values are at the core of our work and our mission, and those values are respect, integrity, teamwork, stewardship, and diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism. Under the value of respect, we treat each person and organization with dignity and esteem as a valued partner in our shared goal to improve individual and community well-being. Under integrity, we steward resources responsibly, make thoughtful and transparent decisions, and keep our promises and commitments. Teamwork, we engage in fulfilling our mission together in a culture of abundance where our skills, talents, and other resources foster the outcomes none of us could produce alone. And stewardship includes showing our gratitude for the gifts and trust that we are given, fulfilling our commitments with humble care and service. And diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism means that we foster a culture where all people are valued, feel that they belong, and can also contribute to our mission. We invite diverse participation in our work, remove barriers to opportunity, and strive toward fair and inclusive access to resources and the opportunity for all Fox Valley region members of our community and the communities themselves to achieve their full potential. Last year, the Community Foundation engaged in a strategic planning process, as well as the diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism assessment. In the gray boxes on the slide on the screen, you can see that the foundation for the Community Foundation success includes a focus on the core business, workplace culture, and providing adequate and secure information technology resources. This includes a new grants portal that will be coming in 2023, and you'll be hearing more about that in the future. And then on the top of the graphic in the triangles are the 4 strategic priorities from our direction. That builds upon the strong foundation in the gray boxes to help drive important areas of focus that we believe will make communities in our region stronger. Those priorities in those triangles are understanding community needs, knowledge exchange, diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism, and also convene and collaborate. And each one of those priorities is dependent upon each other to build, grow, and sustain a mission to best serve our region. Taking a look next at our unrestricted grant-making program. This unrestricted grant-making program seeks to fulfill community needs and advance well-being for all in Calumet, Outagamie, Shawano, and Waupaca counties, as well as the Neenah and Menasha area of Winnebago counties. We have donors that have established charitable funds or make individual contributions and combine them into one single permanent charitable fund that's used to address ever-changing community needs in our region. And the unrestricted grant-making program provides about $800,000 per year for grant making. You may have known our unrestricted grant-making program by a few different names in the past: capacity building grants, partnership grants, fast track, and most recently, the Bright Idea Fund. In spring of 2020, the Bright Idea Fund pivoted to a new structure to respond to nonprofit and community needs during the pandemic. So what has informed the changes and what will be changing in the grant making program? First of all, the learnings from the COVID-19 pandemic, especially through grant making from the Bright Idea Fund pivots that were made, and also the COVID-19 Community Response Fund that we helped to establish and manage in partnership with United Way Fox Cities. Ongoing feedback from nonprofits, which has included lots of positive feedback about some of the best things that were added and changed as we evolved our grant making programs. The Community Foundation Strategic Direction Planning, there was a nonprofit survey that provided helpful feedback. We are part of the Imagine Fox Cities community vision work and also use their well-being survey, as well as the Women's Fund, which conducted a study on COVID-19's impact on women in Northeast Wisconsin. And also we're partners in the Fox Cities life study as well. Quick mention regarding Imagine Fox Cities for those who aren't aware of what that is. Imagine Fox Cities is an inclusive community-wide initiative that began in 2019 to be intentional about shaping the future of the Fox Cities when it comes to well-being. So the Community Foundation has been an active supporter and participant in this effort. And the 4 pillars of that community vision are getting kids off to a great start to life, an economy that works for all, thriving natural and cultural spaces that bring us together, and everyone feeling like they belong. Last summer, Imagine Fox Cities once again conducted a second well-being survey, and the results were presented this May. And you can see one of the slides that shows a bit of information that was taken from that survey that showed about nearly half of residents in the Fox Cities are struggling or suffering. So there's a lot of great data, and going to the Imagine Fox Cities website will give you access to all of the data from that survey, as well as information about an upcoming Strive to Thrive Week, August 22nd through the 26th, where there will be lots of opportunities for engagement and workshops and activities around the community vision. Carolyn.
Thanks, Tammy. One thing I'll note real quickly, just for those that might not be aware, on the Imagine Fox Cities website, the data is live and you can filter it, you can play with it. And there's a lot of really valuable learnings from that data in terms of when we talk about the 50% of the community that might be suffering or struggling. Who is that? And who might be more likely to be suffering or struggling? Who's more likely to be thriving? And I found it really helpful and interesting to be able to go out and actually see different points in the data myself. So I highly recommend that folks do that. So let's talk about how this unrestricted granting program that Tammy gave a little bit of history about is evolving and what's our goal here. Ultimately, a big piece of this work is creating stronger alignment between the foundation's strategic direction and mission and the unrestricted granting program. It hasn't always been the case that our unrestricted granting program mirrored so closely the mission and values and the vision of the foundation and of the work of our board and staff, but we're really kind of solidifying that we look at the unrestricted grant program as a way to drive the change that we want to see in the community, that we're hearing is needed in the community. And though the majority of the grants that go out from the Community Foundation are from donor funds, this is only one fund and it's a small part of the whole, but it's a really important leadership role that we play with the grant making of this fund. So we're improving the strategy for the unrestricted grant making in a way that's forward thinking and nimble, and it's going to serve the 4 priorities of the foundation's current strategic direction for at least the next 5 years, and then likely continue to work towards helping us achieve our strategic direction. Big changes that we're renaming from Bright Idea Fund to Community Vision Fund. Why are we doing that? Well, feedback that we received from the community when we made that change to the Bright Idea Fund was it made people think that everything had to be new ideas only. And in fact, that wasn't the case, but there's a lot that is in a name, right? And sometimes just the name alone, people would think, well, that's probably not for me. But let's say they were looking to take a great idea they had and expand it to an additional community or to additional population. We would have been interested in that. We are interested in that. So we needed a name that was going to be more open and descriptive of what we're actually doing. So we are calling it the Community Vision Fund and seeing where that takes us. We're working towards spending less time on the grant making process and administration and more time listening to you, to other members of our community to understand the needs, build relationships, and connect partners to opportunities for support. So you may have noticed already if you applied to the fund at all during COVID-19, the applications were streamlined. We've accepted applications that you may have already written. Those things are continuing, but we're pushing ourselves even further to invest the time where it matters, and that's in people and relationships. So there's going to be more flexibility as well in how grant funds can be spent. In the past, sometimes the way that grants from the unrestricted funds could be spent was pretty restrictive. We've not found that that's really serving our partners well and helping us be nimble to respond. Boy, did we learn that lesson during COVID, that the more that we can do to design things to be nimble and flexible so we can make a change when we need to respond, it's really important. And then we're also looking at longer term funding commitments with organizations when warranted and when it aligns with our strategic direction and our vision. So what's staying the same? If you're familiar with the fund and you've applied in the past, rolling deadlines year round, starting on August 15th. And hopefully that's something that folks have found to be very helpful. Good ideas, community needs don't pop up on our grant deadline timeline. And we've been working with rolling deadlines for a while now, and it works very well for both us and our partners. So that will continue. We'll continue to provide both single and multi-year funding. We have started since 2020 and will continue to provide multiple options for what we've typically called our final report. That can sound kind of scary, right? So what did we learn? What happened? So we've been calling them results summary. I don't know if I love that either. If you have suggestions for what we could call that, I'm very open to that. But that could be a phone call with our staff. If you like to write things out, that could be a written report, or if you already wrote a report for another funder, we will accept that. It could be a short video, not a fancy video, a video you record on your phone. So we're going to continue just offering you options that work for you to tell us how things went with the grant that you got. we're maintaining the flexibility and nimbleness. And then still going to have opportunity to have conversations with staff. Hopefully you found that when you've reached out and had questions or said, I have an idea, but I'm not really sure if it's a good fit, we'll talk with you and help guide you. And we're continuing to focus on the principles of trust-based philanthropy and equitable grant making that you see there in that graphic. What's changing, right? This is what we really want to know. Well, the fund name's changing. We talked about that. We're streamlining the application and the review process even further. So if you've applied in recent years, you'll know that we had our bridge grant opportunity, our planning grant opportunity, Spark, and they were each separate applications in the grant portal. Everything is going to be one application. So there's one place that you'll go, and there will be an inquiry, but essentially we're not asking you to go to 3 different places when it's money from the same fund. And sometimes maybe your proposal is a mix of things. We're not going to be using the project tab that we've used, budget tab. If you've never submitted a grant to the foundation, you don't know what I'm talking about, but if you have, you know the project budget tab, kind of difficult, frustrating, not always serving us well, and just being more open to simplifying the budget or accepting budgets that you already have. And then one thing we're doing for a while that we did get positive feedback on, so I want to talk about it, is our Bright Idea Forums and our light bulb labs. We were bringing nonprofits and our committee members and donors together. We are not going to return to our Bright Idea Forums or our light bulb labs in their fashion. However, we are going to be finding new ways to learn together and just informally be together. So also very open to ideas that you might have. One of the most positive pieces of feedback we got about the light bulb labs is that, you know, nonprofit leaders, volunteers are busy and you're so focused on your mission, you're passionate. So sometimes you only see the work that you're doing, or maybe you see the work of, let's say you're a human services organization, you're kind of familiar with the work of human services, but you don't know what's going on over in arts or environment. And why would you? At the foundation, we have this 30,000 foot view and we partner with everyone. So when we would have these light bulb labs, there would be a mix of leaders that would come together from all parts of our sector. And some of the collaborations and just ideas that came out of that were really neat. So we will continue to find ways to provide those opportunities, just doing it in a different way. Maybe out at a coffee shop, maybe at our office. Again, looking for your feedback on that. This stronger alignment with the foundation's strategic direction and values, talked about that. We are updating our focus areas. They're not entirely changing, but we're using some new language to better describe what it is we really want to focus on with the Community Vision Fund. And we're also considering how the fund could be helpful to our nonprofit partners, to the community, beyond funding. That might look like assisting an organization to convene a conversation. For example, we've been providing a different kind of a role around conversations on inclusion in the outdoors. We've provided funding, but we've also hosted brainstorming sessions, and we're helping with coordination of an event for the release of that report. Sometimes we're doing advocacy. Our dollars can do a lot, but sometimes we need to use our voices and our stories and our knowledge through advocacy. This is a less familiar role for us, but we are working on building up our advocacy muscle and just ways that our staff and volunteers might just directly get involved. We are also looking at aligning our work with the vital conditions for health and well-being. I'm going to show those here. Not sure if people have had a chance to see these, but the Imagine Fox Cities effort has aligned the data research and the vision around these vital conditions for well-being. And these are really used nationally and researched nationally. So it's a way that we could actually benchmark how we're doing in these areas locally compared to the nation. So the areas are basic needs for health and safety, lifelong learning, meaningful work and wealth, humane housing, reliable transportation, thriving natural world, and belonging and civic muscle. We see a lot of the work that we've funded through the Community Vision Fund aligning very well with these vital conditions. We're not exclusively only funding things related to this vital conditions, but we're trying to be more informed by it and also talk with our partners, talk with you about these vital conditions for well-being. Oh, I'm sorry, Tammy, that was your slide.
You did a fantastic job. No worries. So let's take a look at strategy alignment and what types of strategies we will be using to inform what we will consider funding and how we might get involved. One is increased geographic affiliate or rural engagement. Carolyn mentioned early on in our session the geographic affiliate partners that we work with. We talked about the service region in which we operate. So we have been working very hard during the pandemic to strengthen relationships and listen and learn, particularly in our more rural areas of our service region. So that's going to continue with our new strategy. We'll be supporting efforts that address systems issues or apply systems thinking. We want to invest in under-resourced communities. So communities and populations that have historically been under-resourced and marginalized. So we'll be prioritizing those investments there. Also investing in organizations or programs that are led by people with lived experience or in closest proximity to their experiences to the issues that we're trying to address. And also we'll be applying our diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism lens and that core value of our organization to all of our grant making. And then Carolyn mentioned that we're going to be updating our focus areas and tweaking some of the language, but a lot of the focus areas that we've used in the past with the Bright Idea Fund are still here in the black font. And then we've highlighted in the yellow font some language changes related to the focus areas. So continuing with arts and culture, basic needs, but also thinking about those vital conditions for well-being, adding some additional language and verbiage there around economic stability and well-being. Under community development, we are adding community and neighborhood development to put extra emphasis and focus on neighborhoods in particular, and then continuing with environment and nonprofit effectiveness.
So what are some typical types of grants that you might see from the fund or be able to apply for? And we know this is really important for us to just be transparent with you about what you can ask for, what we can help you do. And thankfully, there's a lot of opportunities. So we have begun already since COVID and will continue to look at, well, for a very long time, we funded capacity building. We've also begun funding operations, general operating support. It's not something a lot of funders are able to do or see as part of their strategy, but there are certain times when that is the best role that we can play. Most commonly, these could be single or multi-year grants. We will be prioritizing organizations that align with the fund's key strategies. So we don't necessarily want to give the message that like anyone from any nonprofit can apply for a general operating support. Maybe you get that, and we're going to be looking at everything through the lenses we just talked about. Typically, this is up to $25,000 per year. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, but that's generally where we are with that. Our planning grants, we've again provided planning grants. I shouldn't even call them planning grants. We've provided planning support for a very long time. Strategic planning, scenario planning, training and consulting around diversity, equity, inclusion. We saw a huge demand for that in the last couple of years, so we've stepped up our support there. Planning around mergers, planning around executive director transitions. Usually in the past, we would provide up to $5,000. We've seen times where we needed to provide a little bit more, so we're saying typically up to $10,000 in that area. Projects, programs, pilots, your dreams for making a difference in the community. We are very interested in that. And in terms of types of things we'll support, we started being more open to funding technology during COVID, and that is most certainly still included. And typically, our project and program grants might be up to $15,000. Sponsorships, we're going to continue to sponsor events, exhibits, performances. We've been sponsor of a number of wonderful events this summer. Hopefully you've been able to partake in some of them. And typically those are up to $10,000. So what does this mean for your nonprofit? If I can try to interpret that. It means that there are opportunities for relationship building with our staff, Tammy, myself, and other staff within our foundation and our community engagement team. It means that instead of submitting multiple applications, let's say you wanted to apply for a planning grant and you also wanted to apply for a grant to pilot a new program, instead of going to 2 different places in our grant portal, it's going to be one place, and it's going to be a very simplified application. Some requests, our board, this is really exciting, has empowered our staff to do a staff approval of some grants, typically ones that are smaller, single year, and less complex. So that means that we can respond more quickly, work more directly with you, and not have to work as hard. Sometimes it's challenging, whether via your grant application itself or what we learn can convey, sort of translate everything that we've learned from you to a committee, and then the committee makes a decision. So times where our staff can go ahead and recommend a grant, make a decision, we will do that. In other situations, generally for grants that are larger, multi-year, maybe more complex, we do have our Community Vision Fund Committee, which is a committee of our board, committee of volunteers, of diverse volunteers from throughout the community, which meets, this should say bi-monthly, sorry about that, which meets bi-monthly. So for requests that you might make that we determine this should really go to our Community Vision Fund, it's still going to be fairly frequent that they'll be making decisions. We're using an inquiry stage. You've seen us do this sometimes with applications. We're hoping it saves everyone valuable time. We're going to ask for brief key details. Our staff will read and evaluate it and determine if we want to move you on to complete the rest of the application. If something's just not a fit, we don't want you spending your time on it. We value your time. We value our staff's time. We recommend that inquiries be submitted at least 60 days prior to when the funding is needed, and that you'll typically hear back from staff within 2 to 4 weeks. So please keep that in mind. We do also understand that there are just like complete out of the blue emergencies, things that happen. That doesn't mean that you can't reach out to us about those things that happen, but generally please try to give that 60-day at least window. And we will be building into the portal an option for you to submit previously written grants and reports and to use your own budget format. So hopefully that will be helpful to you.
So what's coming next? In the near term, on August 15th, grantmaking will resume from the renamed Community Vision Fund. We will be updating all of the grant guidelines, providing access to the forms through the grants portal. And I'm going to quickly put into the chat the link to that page on our website so that you can follow along as we are making updates over the next few weeks that will appear by August 15th. We are also going to be throughout the rest of this year and into next year, we'll be reviewing and updating our grant policies for the foundation. Also next year in 2023, we will be launching a new grants portal, tentatively sometime during the first half of 2023, more to be determined there. And we're working on some other technology improvements as well this year that will feed into that new grants portal component as well. And then ongoing, you can stay up to date via our monthly e-blast for grant seekers. And we also have an opportunity for you in that e-blast to share your feedback and a tool that we have at the end of that message. So now Carolyn and I are going to listen to your questions. I know we have shared a lot with you tonight about the evolution and some of the changes, and would love to hear your feedback. So if you have comments or specific questions, please feel free to jump in. You can post those in the chat, and we'll take the rest of our time together to have a dialogue with you.
Hi guys. Carolyn, can you tell me a little bit about the inquiry form? Like, what would I expect to see? Like, how fleshed out does my vision need to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wouldn't say it has to be very fleshed out. Essentially, we're going to ask you to tell us what are you doing? When is it happening? Where is it happening? And what you might need for support. It will be similar to the inquiry form that the Basic Needs Giving Partnership has used just recently before folks go and fill out the full application. So it's enough to give us a sense of, is this request going to be a match for the focus areas of the fund, for the priorities that we have right now or not? So if it is a good match, we'll invite you to complete the rest of the application, give us a little bit more detail. And if it's not, we'll say, we're sorry, but this isn't a good match. And often, almost every time, our staff provides feedback about why it's not a good match, which we hope really lives out that value of respect that we have, and also helps you understand, like, if you want to apply again in the future, what is it that we are looking for? Thanks for that question.
Thanks, that's helpful. And you said 2 to 4 week turnaround typically from the inquiry?
Yes. Jamie, I see you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi guys. I was going to ask a little bit about the inquiry also. Is that where one of the things you talked about was not just funding, but convening and connecting? So would that come kind of between the inquiry and the actual filling out of the grant? Because I mean, during the inquiry phase, you might decide it's not really a grant for funding, it's more of a making connection thing.
Yeah, I can take that question, and Tammy, you can feel free to add on. It might happen that we get an inquiry and we think, there's maybe a bigger role to play or another conversation that needs to be had, and we might ask to convene and or connect with others at that time. Sometimes we'll get applications from organizations that seem similar to work that's being done, and we just kind of want to make sure they're aware of it. We don't force people to collaborate, but quite frequently we find out that you just don't know what you don't know. You can't know everything about the community, so we can connect to others after that inquiry comes in. And I would say too, if you're working on something and it's really not about a project, or doesn't end up in a grant request, but you think we could play a different kind of role, you could also just email us and we can set up a time to talk about it. So you don't necessarily have to just use that inquiry form to reach out to us. I would say if it's specific to a grant, the inquiry form is a great place to do that. But if it is more about a community need issue, then you can just email us or call us.
Yeah, I think what you said is exactly what I was getting at. I'm working on a project that it's not really about funding so much as making the right connections in the community and seeing who we can assist or who can assist us with the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the time where we'd love to talk with you.
There was a question in the chat from Emily. Oh, Hugh, I just saw your hand too. Can I come back to you in 1 sec?
Sure, I can wait.
Okay, great. So Emily had asked, how can we know we have a strong alignment with your strategic goals in preparation to submit a multi-year general operating grant? Are those fleshed out somewhere in more detail than the triangles? That is a piece that we will providing more details on our webpage, where I had chatted in the link. As we open up and resume grant making August 15th, more of that detail will be posted there. The other thing that we're working on as well is creating a summary of our strategic direction and some of the key aspects of it, and that also will be posted on our website. There will be a link to it from the Community Vision Fund page, but it will also be posted in other areas of our site because we want to make sure that the key elements of that strategic direction are posted, easy to find, available, so that can be helpful with our grant seeking partners, but also other key members of our community. Thanks for your question.
And I'll just add on to that. My advice would be I would focus on, is the work that you're doing related to the focus areas first and foremost? Hopefully it is. And Then how does it relate to those strategies that we talked about, that we're going to be focusing on underserved communities? We're going to be looking at every request with a DEIR lens. That doesn't necessarily mean that like that's all we want to hear about from you, but we might ask you, what is your organization doing in this regard? Or you know, do you have policies related to this? So I would say the focus areas and the strategies, the investment strategies that we talked about are probably most important. Our strategic direction also serves to drive some of the operations of our organization. So we don't expect that you're going to align with our goal around technology improvement, for example. We want you to know, we want to be transparent about what those things are, but I would say I would focus on the focus areas, those strategies. I would learn more about the vital conditions for health. Those are the things that are going to help us best determine if your work is in alignment with what we're seeking to fund.
Thanks for adding that, Carolyn. Hugh.
Yeah, I just am fascinated with the convening and connection part of it that you're doing. Can you give me an example? I'll give you, say, for example, there is this idea and we've looked at it and you looked at your vision and your goals and your strategies and it seems to fit. But if we would come to you, would you also be able to say, you should also know about this organization or this organization and so on and so on, so that you might help us reach out and network?
Mm-hmm. That's another component of the work that we like to do. You could think of us as dot connectors in the community sometimes, and really trying to think about and use additional awareness that we have of what other organizations are doing, what other funders might be focused on, what type of partners might be valuable to try and connect with. So that is that's another valuable piece of the work and the strategy. And as Carolyn mentioned too, as we're thinking about ways to bring nonprofit organization representatives together. So while it might not be in the exact same format as our former light bulb labs, we do want to think about how to provide space and opportunities for people just to come together to share and talk about what they're doing. And we consistently hear that that people from nonprofits really miss just coming together and talking to each other. And it's so interesting to see what comes out of that connection and conversation. And people were like, oh, I didn't know you were doing that. And we're doing this. And oh, maybe we could partner on that. So also know as we're kind of reopening the Community Vision Fund, we really want to think about those opportunities for ongoing connection and conversation.
Yes, and Hugh, quite frequently we'll get a request and we might say, oh, this is a great match for this other fund within the foundation, maybe one of our corporate funds, or maybe it's work that's happening in the affiliate and they don't know about the affiliate yet. And sometimes we can suggest, have you talked to this other funder outside of the foundation, or make an introduction. So we already do that whenever we can, and we'll continue to do that. Just it's one of the best things we can do is kind of, as Tammy said, connect the dots. I think of it kind of like as a matchmaking, because it can bring people great joy to support the work that you're doing. And we can just expand that. Not every time, but sometimes. Tammy, I see you have your hand raised. You can go ahead.
Thanks. Both Carolyn and Tammy, just your diligence and thoughtfulness and in the new way of doing things is wonderful. We're funded by the government quite a bit, and measurables and deliverables and reporting is a huge element of our funding, and just wondering if there's been any thought put into that, because that can be equally as daunting.
Yes, we've thought a lot about that. We will not be asking for measurable objectives. Not that they don't have value. We hope and expect our partners are thinking about how will we know if we're successful, excuse me. But us asking you to produce them in a certain format in the application, we haven't found that to be a huge value add. And there's folks in philanthropy that are saying, let's we need to think more about strategies and the mission of organizations and less about these like very narrow tactics and measurements, because those also aren't flexible enough sometimes to respond to what's really going on. We try to help folks get more comfortable with metrics pre-COVID back in the day. I offered a workshop on writing metrics. We're not going to go back to that. We just don't feel like it added a lot of value to the grant and value to the decision making. We would rather trust that our partners know what they're doing, care about whether they're going to be successful, and we're not going to be asking people to, we might ask you, like, how do you know if you'll be successful? But we won't be saying, write out 3 metrics and then report on those same metrics in the final report. And if you didn't meet every single one, you failed. That's not how that's not how communities work. So thanks for that question.
Thank you.
Other questions, you can put them in the chat, you can raise your hand. Or feedback. We're very open to your feedback and suggestions as well.
Yes, if there's anything that, as we were going through any of the presentation, again, with the strategies, focus areas, anything like that, where it made you pause and go, like, I wonder what that's about, or like something that didn't land maybe the right way as you were first hearing about it. Anything that we should be aware of from that perspective. And we also know we don't have everything all figured out at the moment. And so we're going to roll out and resume the grant making to the best of our ability. And we'll be continuing to listen and learn and take that feedback to also continue to tweak and evolve the processes as we need to. But yeah, by all means, if something comes to mind where you're like, think a little bit more about, how this is worded or how you're approaching that, just feel free to let us know. I think Emily added something in the chat. Let's see, to hear a funder say they intend to trust an organization to do their work well and not be so fixated on metrics makes me so happy. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Emily.
It makes us happy too. Working for the foundation, even during COVID, where we saw the lengths to which organizations went to continue to meet their mission, get creative, the sacrifices people made. In addition to organizations that have sprung up since then, I don't really have a doubt that you care, you're passionate, you don't need us micromanaging you. You need trust, empowerment, and resources, connections. So I guess this is an opportunity for me to say thank you to all of you for the work that you do for our community. We see you and we so appreciate you and your leadership. Your leadership makes a big difference. Question in the chat about the web pages. So thanks to you. The web pages are not updated yet. They're going to be updated and kind of everything rolled out on the 15th. We've got another info session next week, and we're sort of giving folks a preview, I guess you could say. So if you can hang on until the 15th, then the specific text and guidelines and everything will be on the website.
And as a reminder, when grant making resumes on the 15th, there will be rolling year-round deadlines.
And thanks, Jamie, for your question. No new logins or passwords, still your same logins and passwords, because currently we're still in the same portal. Instead of looking for, most recently you would have gone to look for the Bright Idea Fund applications, you'll look for Community Vision Fund, there'll be one. It's next year that we're working towards a new software it's actually our grant portal, our donor portal, a board portal, I believe. Still working on it all in one. So we're really excited about that, but it's going to take us some time to get it right. So for now, it's the same login and passwords that you've had. If you haven't used the grant portal before and you need to register, you can register anytime. You could register right now if you wanted to, and then be ready to go. Registration does take sometimes a day when you register. If you're a new organization in our system, part of our work is to do due diligence and confirm your nonprofit status. And that can take us a little time sometimes. So know that if you need to submit an application for either Community Vision Fund before that 60 days prior deadline or any other fund, please don't wait to register until like the day that it's due, because we sometimes can't quite turn that registration around fast enough.
Any other questions or feedback? Hugh, thanks for the well wishes. I kept my cough muted pretty much throughout, so just trying to be careful there. Thanks, Jamie. Thank you, everyone, for taking time once again out of your evening to be with us. If you have any questions before August 15th, and we have updated information on the website, here's direct contact information for me and Carolyn. We're always willing to have a conversation with you and continue to watch your email and other communication spaces around August 15th, and we'll be sharing all of that updated information. So on behalf of Carolyn as well, thank you once again. And Carolyn, thanks for being a great partner tonight with me.
Yeah, to you as well. And last thing I'll note is, if you know of others that you think might like to attend an info session after hearing tonight, or maybe others from your organization, we do have the in-person session next week as well. And we'll have an opportunity for a little tour of the office if you haven't been in our updated office. And I'm not sure when we'll get the recording out, but that's another opportunity where you're like, oh, I really want to be able to share this information with someone else. You can either invite them to the session next week, or we'll have the recording for you to share.